Hello, everyone, and welcome to a special report. I wanted to talk today about the upcoming Mercury retrograde cycle. And look at that. It's already happened. Oh my gosh. You know, Mercury has stationed retrograde. So we went all through the pre-shadow phase, which I think is one of the most important times of the Mercury retrograde itself, right? We have sort of several peak cycles that happen. The pre-shadow phase brings in the early onset of information, data, basically, um, that is pointing to the evolutionary intention of the retrograde cycle. It points to, in whispers, I think, in hints, in little, content kind of revealing itself. It's like, have you ever gotten one of those packages when I was a little girl, they had those toys that were covered in tissue, layer after layer of tissue, and you would unravel the tissue until you got to the very center where there was a toy. And that's kind of how the retrograde cycle works, except that what we're doing is accelerating the essential soul evolution to get to the point, to the heart, to what we want, um, what we need to integrate in order to move forward in our lives. And while this probably happens on some level with all planetary retrogrades, right? With a planet like Pluto that's retrograde for 6 months out of the year, we might not be noticing that unraveling process so quickly happening. But with Mercury, who retrogrades 3 times a year for 3 weeks at a time, there's an essential quickening that happens that is marked by the three different phases of the retrograde. So we have the pre-shadow, the retrograde cycle, which includes the conjunction or the cazimi with the sun during its retrograde phase. And then we have the post-shadow, where it covers the degrees in which the retrograde occurred. So we're in the actual retrograde, Mercury stationed, and then we are going to have some interesting things happen in this retrograde. First, you will see this conjunction with Mars, and that happens Tuesday into Wednesday. And I think what's important with this conjunction, keep in Mars is like acceleration, right? There's a movement of energy. Mars is the natural ruler of Aries and in some traditions, Scorpio. And we have Mars is Mars is ruling that retrograde Chiron in Aries. And Mars is in Sagittarius right now, right? And it's newly moved into Sagittarius. And this conjunction with Mercury essentially is bringing forward some truth relative to our belief systems, what has been limiting our freedom, um, the places in which our life and our path is part of a longer unfolding journey of our evolution. Mars is going to put an emphasis or an acceleration on a very particular truth that we've been maybe hiding from ourselves, maybe hiding from others, right? Sagittarius has to do with, or is ruled by Jupiter and has to do with our belief systems, um, authenticity. If there are ways in which we have been inauthentic, um, we may find ourselves involved in conversations, in challenging sort of exposures to different belief systems that are a part of our resolving something within our lives that is deeper. You know, one of the message I recently did a ceremony, and one of the messages that I received was stop romanticizing normalism. Stop romanticizing normality. Sorry, stop romanticizing normality. And that message really surprised me, but it brought to my awareness this way in which I can look at my life and the way that I'm living and look at other people's lives, maybe lives that seem more normal than mine, people who are in a conventional marriage, let's say, and I'm not married and I'm in I have a family partner and I have all these dreams and desires for a life, right? And there's a part of my soul that's pointing me towards something which might seem really traditional. Or I could say looking at people's homes, right? Going to someone's home or looking on social media, or, looking at people's lives, and there's like something that they're doing, right? It's reflecting, right? We can romanticize like a woman who has 5 kids, right? More kids than me, and a clean house. And I can romanticize that nor what seems like a normal situation, but it's actually an illusion on many levels, right? A woman with 5 kids isn't necessarily going to have a clean house all the time. I know with 4 that it seems almost nearly impossible, but I'm sure it is possible because I have moments of my house being tidy and clean and you know, it, but then I have a toddler who's 3 who's like has this unlimited creative destruction capacity, right? To throw whatever she's doing on the floor out of nowhere for no reason and not ever pick it up, right? And it's like doesn't it doesn't matter for me at least how much I try and train her, teach her like, hey, we put this away or we even now she's getting better at like not doing certain things that have become habitual destruction, but it's a daily process, right? But this idea that we are romanticizing normality, to me, the sub message that I received after that message was that it inhibits my creative potential. It inhibits your creative potential. When we romanticize what we perceive as a normal condition, that is not an authentic condition of our own life or not a natural way of being, an unnatural way, right? We can unnecessarily trap ourselves in a belief system, an ideology, a way of living that actually isn't natural to the essential expression of our own soul. And the expression of our own soul on some level is going to have to do with the very karmic, difficult dynamics that we were um, assigned to resolve in this lifetime, right? So, but if our focus, like in that romanticizing normality, the focus can become upon some sort of inadequacy of our own lives, not enoughness, something like, oh, if I just had this, or if I just did that, or if I just could be like this, or if I just, you know, and let's pay attention to this Mercury retrograde because I really do think that it's going to bring us closer and closer to an authentic expression of our own truth, maybe through, so here we have, I don't want to skip. When the moon gets into Virgo on Wednesday with this Mars Mercury, later on into Wednesday, we're gonna see the moon squaring Mars and Mercury there, right? There's going to be some sort of I would imagine some sort of breakdown functionally of what has been inauthentic in our own communication, in patterns of relating, and one of the things that I saw in my ceremony was just the way in which I can be attracted to men who have, deep wounds and I just feel sad and a little vulnerable to talk about, but I can be attracted to people who are dishonest with themselves, I can be attracted to people who are suffering and in a lot of pain. And one of the messages that I received is, Michelle, um, you cannot save these men from their pain. You can only pray for them. And it was a liberating thing because I think it, in and of itself, the realization that it brought was that not only could I not save them from their pain, nor could I change them by any means of my own force or willpower or even desire, right? My desire for them to see their own potential or to be able to live in relationship in a different way, but it was actually causing me great pain, endeavoring my energy towards that. But it was masking a deeper sense of inadequacy within my own self, right? And this is like the kind of embarrassing thing to admit to yourself. It's like, oh, wow, like by looking at that pain over there, I'm not looking at this pain in here. And so then you know, um, I'm seeing what I can do to fix that over there, but I just don't have any energy to fix this in here, or even not to say that it's fixed because there's anything broken, but that brokenness, that we can feel the guilt, shame, um, the ways in which we can feel a sense of disconnection from our own holiness, from the ways in which we can be actually attracted to pain in the world, because I do think that pain in the world and pain in our lives reminds us of our own humanity. And without that, we kind of miss, we can spiritually bypass that and, focus on our divinity, but that often it doesn't get us out of the human situation. And then so after that moon square or that emotional reckoning, I would say the reconciliation maybe of some kind, we move into the Libra moon and Mercury starts to move back towards the sign of Scorpio. It's going to cross its own north node here at 0 degrees Sagittarius just before this Scorpio new moon. Um, in this balsamic phase. And I could see that bringing in this clarification, this essential insight prior to going into the emotional process, right? Insight realization is great, right? It's like you can read a Buddhist book or a scripture or any spiritual text and be like, wow, that's so wonderful. Look at that. But it rarely does us any good until the emotional transmutation of that which separates us from the actual feeling of the realization is experienced. And that's where I think we're going into this Scorpio retrograde time. We have to actually integrate the emotional depth of our understanding in an embodied way, you know, and that's kind of like coming face to face with like, oh, there's this deeper truth, which I had, hidden from myself. The deeper that I go into my own experience, the more I realize that truth is present inside of me. And then it comes out in this emotional way. And sometimes that can hurt. And sometimes it can reveal a purpose, a deeper, greater purpose. Like we have Mercury here in its retrograde and trying to Saturn and Neptune. So I would imagine this in absolutely does lead us to a deeper, more powerful purpose within our own soul. And then, just after this new moon, we're going to see Mercury making its conjunction with Venus as a part of this. I think, these points, the Mercury Mars conversation points, right? These are the ends of the polarity. And remember where they're um, Venus rules Taurus, which is where Uranus has already made its retrograde into Taurus. It's at the last degree of Taurus. Mars rules, like I said, that Chiron that's retrograde, right? So the combined retrograde factor to me indicates a total soul evolutionary impulse. And let's go around the wheels just so we can really be clear about how incredibly integrated all of this is. Mercury's retrograde in Scorpio with Venus. Venus is ruling the retrograde Uranus in Taurus. Okay. Jupiter is retrograde in Cancer. The moon rules that Jupiter, right? So the moon is going to be moving that Jupiter retrograde energy. Saturn and Neptune are retrograde in Pisces. Neptune rules Pisces. We have this 29th degree culmination energy of both Neptune and Uranus. And Mercury is the natural ruler of Virgo, where the South Node is, and also Gemini. So these places in the natal chart, these particular houses in your own personal chart, if there are planets that are connecting to those houses, if you have planets, for example, such as Mercury that is retrograde in your natal chart, or you have, Saturn retrograde in your natal chart, right? And Mercury and Saturn are making a trine to one another during this retrograde. There is along with Jupiter, this grand trine that forms pretty closely. I mean, it's within a degree or so. Here's when uh, Mercury gets to 24, is going to trine Jupiter, and Saturn is at 25. So there will be a moment where Mercury will trine Saturn, and then Mercury will move to trine Jupiter, which on all levels. So the water trine, right, is emotional, Cancer, security, nourishment, protection, care. Scorpio, sexual, powerful, intimate, attachment oriented, emotionality, transmutation of those energies. Pisces, transcendent emotional energy, the energy of the all, of God encompassing all unconditional love, right? So we have um, a natural emphasis that those energies are intensifying really to do what? To draw us closer to our own evolutionary center through returning, reevaluating, um, I wouldn't call it renegotiating, but re-entering into relationship to those deeper parts, to the lost parts. My one of my favorite songs that was released recently is called I Will Light a Candle by Melita. And in that song, she sings, I'm gonna light a candle for the shadow parts of my soul which have been lost, and I'm going to call them all back home, home, home to me. This to me is like Mercury retrograde song on repeat. You could put that song on repeat and just listen really, and calling all those parts back to ourselves will mean that we're going to naturally find a way to integrate through our emotional experience, through discovering truth, through bringing our our vulnerabilities to the light of that spiritual truth, through bringing our vulnerabilities inside and without shame or judgment or you know we can touch onto the wounds within ourselves. It's like when I receive that message, and then I can see the pain that I'm attracted to, and then I can see the vulnerability what that covers up in myself. It reveals to me my own wound in a safe light, you know, and sort of like swimming into a dark pool at night. If you are focused on swimming towards the pool light at the bottom, right? There's something pulling and drawing us towards something within our own soul that wants to be illuminated because on a deeper level, this has to be resolved for our own progress. And what I love about the Mercury retrograde cycle is that it does. So Mercury stations direct here on November 29th at the end of the month. And that's right when the moon is in Pisces, moving towards that. So just before the Mercury station, we're going to have this Pisces moon, first quarter square. And I'll try and break down a lot of this more in the week ahead, but I just want to give you the whole big overview. And then we get this direct station. So from 20 Scorpio to 6 Sagittarius, we're going to stay in that shadow period. And the significant piece of this return of Mercury, this resolution time, will also be followed by the entrance of Venus into Sagittarius. So you can think of this as being on an inner quest for truth. And on that inner journey, a part of what's happening, Saturn is stationing direct. So we're culminating a longer term lesson for us about our own limitations, about the places in our life where we become stuck, whether it's stuck through our own pain and our own suffering cycles, whether it's stuck through sort of attachment or disconnection from our own holiness, our own truth, our own, you know, the way they say like truth hurts and then it sets you free. This is kind of one of those moments where the truth, of course, it does hurt on some level when we find that place within ourselves. It's like, oh, okay, that that pain was covering over something deeper within my own soul that wanted to be free. And then there's a freedom coming. And I would say the freedom comes on the other side of the Sagittarius new moon, which happens here in towards the end of December and after Mercury clears its shadow. So we'll cover more of that in future weeks ahead, but I just wanted to give you the basic overview. As always, my friends, if there's something that touched your heart, please share it in the comments or leave me a little emoji. I always love your love. Love to hear from you. Give this video a thumbs up. And if you're new to this channel, subscribe. I give a weekly video on the astrology of the week ahead. And I also do these quick, you know, Mercury special reports, or depending on whatever the planet is. I kind of like to go a little bit deeper into a particular aspect pattern. All right, everyone, have a great day. Bye for now.